is catapulted into the air. It then flies to the remote location where it's perhaps hard to get to by roads, especially certain times of the year. The person receiving the blood gets a notification on their phone to say, time to go outside, blood's coming. It drops it, comes to the ground, a little parachute, the person goes out and picks it up. So drones can be used in lots of different ways. I encourage you to think about, as you're building robots, if your robots were to fly, what problems could you solve with them? This drone has a flamethrower on it. So drones can have flamethrowers on them too. How cool is that? This is a drone that's used in China. If you have power lines that have debris on them, they used to send a poor guy up on a ladder, and he might get zapped or he might fall off. Now they just set up a drone and blast it off with a flamethrower. There are even drones for dogs. And if there are drones for dogs, why can't there be drones for humans? Just a few years ago, when I was a futurist at Intel, I'm on video, which is all over the web, saying that flying cars are not going to happen anytime soon. How wrong I was. I'm tracking about a dozen companies around the world that are working on passenger drones for 1, 2, 4, or up to 8 people. The first trials of these will happen in Dubai and Singapore this year. And they are mostly all vertical takeoff and landing, so that they can just start on the rooftop. Perhaps on the top of this building, you could have a drone and fly to the top of another building. And some of them are completely autonomous. So the same way you'll have an autonomous car that just picks you up and takes you where you need to go, you'll be able to get into one of these flying cars. It will take you where you need to go. You do not need a pilot's license. There will not be a pilot. The pilot will be software. So think big. What I encourage you to do, the young minds in this room, and even the slightly older minds in the back row here, we have an opportunity in the next 20 years to reimagine everything that we do, every part of our life, because a lot of these technology building blocks, especially once you add in augmented reality, 5G networking, blockchain, some of the technologies I didn't have time to talk about today, it will allow us to completely reimagine healthcare and focus healthcare on helping people stay well rather than fixing them when they break. To reimagine the way that energy is created. This is energy being created from algae that is running in tubes over the top of a Paris freeway. The algae has been genetically engineered to take in sunlight and poop out ethanol. We're going to reimagine the way that kids are educated, the way that adults are educated, and we're going to educate people their entire lives. Reimagine construction, reimagine agriculture. You can grow things hydroponically with 90% less space and 95% less water if you start to stack things up in a warehouse like this and grow them inside cities. We're going to reimagine mobility. The way that people get around the planet will be fundamentally different. And yes, there will be flying cars. Reimagining design, retail. This is a store that has no employees. Entertainment. If you haven't tried HoloLens yet, find a way to try it. It's awesome. We're going to change the way that we live our lives. And the people that will do that are people like you. Very often, as a futurist, I hear that people are afraid of the future. And they're afraid of the future because they feel like the future is something that happens to them. The future is not something that happens to you. The future is built by people. And it's largely built by people like you. So think about the future that you want to build and how you're going to participate in that. Because it's also my future and I'm relying on you. So I want to give you a glimpse of some of the things that are coming, some of the ways of thinking about the way you can have an impact in the world. And I'd like you to start thinking about what is the future I want to build and what is the future I want to avoid. And for everybody here today, I'm a futurist by training and by profession. I deputize you all as futurists. I want you to all start thinking about what's the future I want, how do I participate in that, and how will it change our way of living and our culture, and start having conversations about that with other people to help them not be afraid, to help them participate, deputize them as futurists too. Go and build something amazing, people. Thanks for your time. Do you want to do questions, or do you want to head to the next speaker? I know we're just kind of over time a little bit. You can do questions, okay. We have a thumbs up on questions. Oh, I have to throw this thing. Who has a question? Someone be brave. Someone can go first. I know you can do it. Thank you. I'm going to give you the box. The catch box. You ready? Speaking to the top, apparently.
So
you have to hold it up to your mouth. Yeah.
In your opinion, what are the biggest roadblocks for this futuristic vision?
The catch box not working. What are the biggest roadblocks for the future of this vision? I don't think there are roadblocks per se. I think the technology is all going to advance. My biggest worry is a side effect of all of this stuff happening, which is we will destroy a bunch of jobs. Technology has always destroyed jobs while it's created them. That poor person you saw behind the horse dragging a piece of rusty metal through the ground, that was a really unpleasant job. Most people work the land, they were lucky if they lived till 40, and now those people are making lattes and programming web pages, whatever. That's a good thing. Quality of life is improved. My concern is that we're going to see such a rapid shift because of AI advancements, because of robotics advancements, that we're going to get rid of a bunch of jobs very quickly, and those people will not be easily retrainable to do something else. So there are about 3.5 million truck drivers in the US, and they're not trained to do much else. And once we have autonomous trucks, 10 to 15 years from now, what are they going to do? And they rely on driving a truck to put money on their, put food on their kids' table. So that's my biggest concern. I'm not so worried about a roadblock, other than the natural consequence of that, which is we may have another sort of Luddite uprising with people saying hell no to robots and people in the streets, and, it could be ugly. So that's probably the biggest roadblock. Thank you, good question. Next. Any other questions?
Over here.
Oh.
Box. Is it working? Yeah, there we go. Can you talk a little bit about the role of government in all of this? So what does it mean when things are changing this fast? And what should government be doing to support or to mitigate risk?
So what's the role of government? And I know I have an outrageous British accent, but I am an American citizen. I care deeply about how this country is going to perform in the future. That's why I do what I do, in large part. The government is currently asleep at the wheel, at a national level, federal level. No one talking about how to invest in technology. Certainly in this administration, it's demonstrably worse than the last administration. Not to get political, but it is not a good time in federal government for moving things forward technologically. We seem to be moving backwards. And we're still talking about coal. That's not a good thing. The good news is, on state level, things are a lot better. I'm involved quite a bit with local government officials in Oregon, and they are talking about how do we embrace robots, how do we prepare people for this transition in the workforce. And so at the state level, things are going pretty well. But it's going to have to be a partnership between government and technology companies, because what we're talking about is a fundamental change to the way that life is lived on the planet. And it won't be enough for companies, and particularly tech companies, to make the investments that are needed. It requires structural changes in the way that we operate. And that's going to mean changes to regulations, some laws have to be passed, and if we want to try and make sure that we don't have 40% of the population without jobs, that will require us to make some political decisions too. So there's a lot to be done there. Thank you, good question.
I think this also applies for universities.
You need the box, wherever the box is.
You see this also apply for universities and colleges and how they teach kids and how to bring up the whole.
Yeah, I met with the 7 presidents of the 7 Oregon universities, meet for a retreat every summer, and I spent a couple of hours with them a couple of months ago to help them think through this and figure out how do we completely retool education and make it a lifelong partnership. So you don't just go and do a degree for 4 years and like, ta-da, I'm now a person and now I can go and be successful in the world for the rest of my life. That goes away very soon. And so starting to think about how do you build a lifelong partnership with an educational establishment that helps you grow throughout your 40 years of work. So yes, good point. Any other questions? Any questions from somebody under the age of 20? Okay, where's the magic box? Okay, Naveen, see how far you throw it. Not bad.
What are your thoughts on companies like SpaceX?
Companies like SpaceX. Traveling into space, usually, it's hard to get into space. To get into space and to do the things that we want to do in space in the future, like going to Mars and building space stations, you have to invent lots of new technology. The moon race, for example, created all kinds of new technology that we all rely on today. So I think companies like SpaceX, there's benefits like you'll get more satellites for less money, so you'll get better communications. But the big benefits will be they will solve some fundamental technology challenges that will have payoffs here on Earth. I suppose the other one is Elon Musk's view is we're a much more interesting species if we're a multi-planetary species. And so the sooner we get off Earth, not only do we become more windswept and interesting, but we also reduce our risk of extinction because we only have one place to go at the moment. And if it gets hit by a big rock flying through space, then we're not in a good place. So I think it's really interesting, but I'm more interested in those companies because of the side benefits that will come out of them. If they behave anything like NASA has over the last 50 years, that's a pretty good thing.
Do you think we'll be able to colonize Mars by this generation?
Space stuff isn't, I haven't spent a long time thinking about it. I do for the child inside me that still loves that stuff. If you listen to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, I don't know if we'll colonize Mars, but I think we might get people to Mars in the next generation. Whether we can get them home again, we may have to colonize because it's really hard to get them back. So it may be a one-way ticket. So by that nature, yeah, they may go there and die there. And there'll be a nice tombstone for them on Mars, but will we have cities built on Mars in a generation? No. Might we have an outpost of people who went on a one-way ticket? Yeah, probably. Any more? Any more? Going once? Oh, over here, okay. It might be a two-hop throw. Maybe someone in the middle here can catch. Or you could just walk it over there. Okay.
So as I'm seeing there's so much future for the technology, but I'm seeing the other side of the disadvantages as our kids are growing. The natural part of a human being is kind of, I feel somewhere it's getting lost. There is more technology. I don't know how to explain the natural relationships, the naturality of the human being is kind of.
Yeah, that's a good point. So as we create more technology, do we become less human? And do we diminish the things that make us humans, like hanging out together and braiding each other's hair, and whatever it might be? Well, I say braiding each other's hair. Those days are over for me. I think it's a choice, and we often make poor choices. And I actually did a TED talk on this exact topic, and it's called "Why Technology Must Make Us Better Humans." And the reason I called it that is because if you think about the 1960s, way before a lot of you were born, that was when TVs first came into homes in America. And families had to make a decision. Are we the type of family that has dinner with the TV on, or are we the type of family that has dinner with the TV off? And most families decided better with the TV off. But that was a decision that had to be made. It took a number of years for the culture to figure that out. And then when these beasties came along, we had to make another decision. I can use this piece of technology to call my mother back in England and make her day, because her boys call her now. Or I can use this technology to ignore you while we're at dinner together. So it's all about a choice, and it's the interplay of culture and technology. Now, usually it takes us about 5 years to figure this stuff out. And it's a big conversation, and you have to tell people that's rude, and no, it isn't. You know, it takes a long time. If we have to take 5 years to figure this out every time a new piece of technology comes, it's accelerating, and we won't have the luxury to do that. So I think we have to have a new framework. And the framework is, simple question, does this technology help me be a better human or not? And to answer that question, the answer for everybody else, everybody's different. You know, does it help me be a better human as a mother? Does it help me, I'm not a mother. Does it help me be a better employee? Does it help me be a better friend? Does it help me be a better sibling? So everybody has to think for themselves ahead of time, what does a better human look like to me? And once you figure that out, and people haven't usually taken the time to ask themselves that question. If you ask yourself the question now, what does being a better human look like for me? What are my goals? How do I want to grow? And then as these technologies come at you, and it'll be things like, should I leave my elder,